You've probably heard of Bitcoin, the currency and digital asset that's revolutionizing the way people do financial transactions, invest their money, and decentralize economic power into people's hands, so they don't depend on financial institutions and governments. What you might not know or have heard about is the 2013 Cyprus's banking crisis, and how this event in this small island and country in Europe was one of the main events responsible for completely changing the importance and adoption of Bitcoin in the world. Let's find out in this video and understand what this event was and why it is so important for us to understand Bitcoin, because for many, the 2012 year and the Cyprus's banking crisis in 2013 were the most important moments in the adoption of Bitcoin for the world. But before that, make sure to subscribe to this new channel to see more videos that will cover, analyze, and reveal economic aspects behind countries' successes and failures, and other interesting economic facts from around the world. Imagine you woke up one day to find out your bank account was invaded by the government. Exactly. All your money deposited into the bank and supposedly safe is no longer yours. From night to day. Is it a nightmare? No. This is exactly what happened in the Cyprus banking crisis not so long ago in 2013. According to residents at the time, last week Cypriots were rich, now we are poor. Why is this happening? Our biggest concern is that the entire banking system will collapse, not just one or two banks. Another one said, "It's worse than a war. At least in a war, you know who your enemies are." But how in practically a week did a holiday island in the Mediterranean become one of the worst problems in Europe at that time? Let's find out. Cyprus is an island and a country located in Europe. It is one of the smallest countries in the world. It has an area of just over 9,000 square kilometers. Just to give you an idea of how small this is, it's almost 5 times smaller than Denmark and 10 times smaller than Portugal. According to the World Bank, it has a population of around 1.2 million people. The country has historically relied on commerce and more recently tourism and the banking system as its main economic activities. But in 2013, the country's banking system collapsed and was responsible for a catastrophe in the Eurozone and the European Union. Two important events and dates in Cyprus's history to understand the roots of the country's banking crisis and how it affected Bitcoin are the years 2004 and 2008. On May 1st, 2004, Cyprus became a member of the European Union. The European Union is a coalition that currently has 27 European countries and was conceived to tear down trade, economic and social barriers and promote growth and integration between these countries. The second event took place on January 1st, 2008, when Cyprus joined the Eurozone and adopted the euro as its national currency. The euro is the second most important global currency. To clarify, the European Union is not the same thing as the Eurozone. The Eurozone was created in 1999 and is simply the collection of all countries that use the euro as their main currency. Today, the Eurozone is a monetary union of 19 European Union countries. Thus, while most European Union members' countries have agreed to adopt the euro, some, such as Denmark and Sweden, have decided to keep their own traditional currencies. As said, the main reason that led countries to join the European Union and the Eurozone are the economic benefits that can help countries to grow. But when joining the Eurozone and adopting the euro as the country's currency, there are advantages and disadvantages. The main disadvantage that arises when a country joins a monetary union is that its central bank loses its independence, having to follow the euro policy established by the European Central Bank and subject to control of other countries. But looking at the advantages, after joining the European Union and the Eurozone, Cyprus started to enjoy the strength and credibility of the euro, with its citizens, companies, banks, and government having access to vast and cheap credit, supported by strong Eurozone countries like Germany. The Cypriot banking system started to grow exponentially, and along with the fact that Cyprus is a tax haven, there was a huge financial flow into the country. In fact, the country's taxes have made it a popular place primarily for wealthy Russians, oligarchs, corporations, and a few dubious characters to put their money. To give you an idea, the Cypriot financial system grew so much that according to a study by the European Commission, at the end of 2012, the total assets of Cyprus's financial system were equivalent to 718% of the country's GDP. With so much money and credit, Cyprus started to invest all these resources, and much of it went into Greek government bonds, and this decision later turned out to be one of the main roots of the Cyprus's crisis. After the subprime crisis that happened in the United States in 2008, the whole world was affected in the following years by contagion and negative effects on trade and the international financial system. The financial flow that circulated around the world with investments in bonds, stocks, and the financial system was practically interrupted. This had negative consequences for several countries that depended on this money and funding. One of them, Greece, began to have serious difficulties in financing its debt, and there were even revelations that the country was manipulating and falsifying its economic data. This started a crisis of distrust towards Greece in the international market, and as a consequence, the country could no longer obtain international financing, and the cost of its debt increased significantly. The result was that the Greek government and the Greek banking system had to default again and ask for help from the European Union. To give you an idea, Greece in 2012 made the biggest default ever recorded so far in history, and the default in private banks alone reached 100 billion euros. So, do you remember that one of Cyprus's main investments was in Greek government bonds? With the financial system that had assets worth 7 times the size of the country's economy, and now with several defaults, Cyprus practically collapsed, as Cyprus's financial system simply stopped. To understand the scale of the problem, the country's second largest bank, the People's Bank of Cyprus, also known as the Laiki Bank, closed, while the largest, the Bank of Cyprus, was forced to confiscate deposits in an attempt to maintain itself liquid and solvent. But it wasn't just these two banks that were affected. The government had to interfere in the entire financial and banking system, limiting people's access to their own money. For 12 days, all the banks were closed, and all the money people could withdraw was $383 or 300 euros a day. And it was under these circumstances that Bitcoin appeared. Before we explain more about Bitcoin, don't forget to leave a like in the video so that we can bring you more content. Also, if you're interested, check out the links below to see how to start your online business as I did. Created in 2008 and effectively launched in 2009, Bitcoin, until practically 2012, was something more restricted to people involved in the technology world or visionary people in the investment world, such as the story involving the Winklevoss brothers. But throughout 2013, starting the year with this crisis in Cyprus, Bitcoin started to gain the headlines and attention of the general public, and as a consequence of its demand, it caused the price of Bitcoin to skyrocket. The price of Bitcoin in 2013 had an appreciation between 5,500% and 5,600%. This is equivalent to saying that the price of Bitcoin rose approximately 56 times. In other words, whoever invested $1 at the beginning of the year would have $56, and whoever invested $1 million would have $56 million. And that is if we take into account the prices at the beginning and end of the year on the 1st of January 2013 and the 31st of December 2013 respectively. Because if we consider that in November 2013 Bitcoin reached the value of approximately $1,132, then Bitcoin throughout 2013 reached the incredible appreciation of approximately 8.500%. This means that the price rose 85 times before ending the year quoted at $732 with an appreciation of 5,600%. Returning to the Cyprus banking crisis, many agree that the year 2012 combined with the Cyprus crisis in early 2013 was the event that definitely brought light on the importance of Bitcoin to the world. The citizens of Cyprus saw what it was like to have all of your money confiscated by the government. This caused the demand for Bitcoin to increase, transforming the asset, until then known as a digital currency linked to the dark web and the world of cybercrime, into a real-world instrument and investment to carry out transactions and serve as protection against the dictatorship of governments. As an example, we can mention the University of Nicosia in Cyprus, which at the time was the first university in the world to accept Bitcoin as a form of payment. Because Bitcoin is an asset considered decentralized, that is, it is not dependent on any government or financial institution, no one can intervene in its access. Therefore, Bitcoin began to be widely used by Cypriots to circumvent the restrictions imposed by the government and banks, and that was one of the reasons for the fast appreciation of the asset. We can see that, if we had to choose, definitely the most important event in Bitcoin history, responsible for bridging the gap between the first adopters involved with the technology world and visionary investors, and ordinary people concerned with simply protecting and having access whenever they want to their own money and not being in the hands of governments and financial institutions. Without a doubt, it was the Cyprus banking crisis. Well, now that you know more about the Cyprus banking crisis and why this event changed the history and importance of Bitcoin in the world, help this channel by saying what other countries or economic subjects you'd like us to analyze. Leave your answer in the comments below, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to our new channel for new videos where we will cover, analyze, and reveal economic aspects behind countries' successes and failures, and other interesting economic facts from around the world. Oh, and don't forget to activate the bell to stay on top of the news on this channel. We'll see you in the next one. Until then,